Here with interim Atlanta United head coach Rob Valentino. Rob, really appreciate you hopping on talking with us for a little bit. You doing okay?
Yeah, I'm great. Thanks for having me.
First Wednesday, it seems like in forever, you actually don't have a game tonight.
Yeah, that's true. We've been crazy scheduled, so it's nice to have a little bit of training time.
So obviously, this is opportunity for fans get to know you a little bit better. Just kind of pick your brain a little bit, but I'll dive right into it. But maybe for people that aren't as in tune with Atlanta as over the years, take a minute, kind of go through what your coaching career has looked like overall.
Yeah, I mean, it's developed a big part in Atlanta. But yeah, I mean, I started coaching in 2015. I was still playing at the time, and my old teammate Anthony Pilas, who's the assistant at Salt Lake, had asked me to potentially retire and come back and coach with him when they were starting up the B team in Orlando. I know some fans won't love me saying that, but it was a place that I played before and the place I was really familiar, and I'd just been there. So I looked at it as like a long-term potential of something I want to do after. I wasn't sure exactly where I liked coaching. I wasn't sure exactly what my pathway would be after I stopped playing. I was just starting a family, and it ended up being a really good opportunity to still train with some of the guys, but also learn the art of coaching. And Anthony is a great young coach, and he was somebody to help learn from. So I was training as well as coaching, I guess you could say. I didn't do a ton, I would say, my first year, which I was 100% okay with. It was really just learning. Started the coaching courses and that. And after about, I think it was a year and a half, the first 6 months was essentially helping the first team because we didn't have a team yet with the B team, and then kind of orchestrating and starting that. And then from there, we did 2 seasons with the B team, and then they went away with it. So I knew I was coming up to having to find a new opportunity, and the opportunity to come to Atlanta, what popped up with people I knew, with Carlos and at the time Paul McDonough. So I ended up landing in a really good spot, being the second team assistant coach. And it was honestly, I was just talking with Ronald Hernandez about this, about why I coach, and that North Star that I always have. It was more about, at the time, I was working with that age group of players that was really hungry to push on and earn a first team contract. Because I felt like that was my whole career, is that I was in MLS and then I dropped out, and then it was like every day was about how can I get back into that MLS team, or how can I make a debut at MLS level. And so it just consumed me. And when I thought about it as I started to coach, I was like, I want to be working with players that are hungry to get there and have a lot of talent to really push and get to that level. I thought I had that talent. Other decisions that were beyond me told me I wasn't, but I really wanted to work with players like that. And also, at the end of the day, I wanted to influence people and help players achieve more than they thought they really could. So working with that level of player and the players that were the age group, and also where they sat in certain rosters, I thought it was a really good spot for me to start. And then I was fortunate enough after 1 season to get promoted and start working with the first team when Frank DeBoer came, and that was a different learning curve and different type of player you're working with. Like, working with Joseph is a lot different than working with an academy striker that's trying to on the up and coming. So they were invaluable learning tools. As you learn almost just with the experience and learning on the fly. And from there, it's just progressed every single year. And yeah, I mean, now I've done this now twice. Unfortunately, I say that it's been on the selfish standpoint, it's been really good. I'm really grateful for these types of opportunities, but the way they come about is not nice, and I really don't love that part. On both staffs, there was friendships, there was relationships that I built, and that was really hard. At the same time, like, once I've moved past those emotions and moved forward with those, I took the opportunity, and I'm just trying to do the best I can with it. So, here I am talking with you guys, and we'll see what else lands for me next.
There's obviously a lot of good stuff in there, but you mentioned coming up with the twos, and then when Frank DeBoer took over, what have been some of the things that you've kind of taken from each of the other coaches that have come through? Because I understand totally. We talked about that a lot, very recently with, when it becomes your opportunity, it is because of essentially something negative, right? But you're in a position now where you're the guy again. What have you taken from those various coaches that have come before you?
Yeah, I mean it's a really good question, and I'm glad you asked, because I took something from all of them. I've worked with a bunch of different coaches, and like Tata obviously was the first team coach when I come, and obviously with the success he had, it was great, but also like on the field, it was the first time I got to experience. Yeah, I would say it's the first time I ever experienced in this side of the game coaching a coach that was from a different country that was really, really foreign to me. I'd played for English coaches. I'd played for people that I would say there wasn't anything I hadn't seen in some. I don't mean to be arrogant, but I had seen a lot of
Yeah.
the ideas that they had talked about, the way I'd seen the leagues that they had played in or coached in. So I understood that. But Tata was the first one where I was like, man, that's a whole different way of training, different ideas, a different type of passion. So that part was really cool to take a lot of like the high energy, high intensity exercises or just thoughts that he had. Frank had a different mentality coming from Europe, and the experience he had a lot more about I would say the possession based stuff that he had learned in Ajax. A lot about being really solid defensive middle block team. And even though maybe our team didn't always play like that, but we would have conversations on different ways. He had different types of training exercises that he had done in Ajax, whether it was before when he had seen things as a player or seen things as a coach. So like you took little things like that. Even just like the stories about maybe playing days or things that he saw in different dressing rooms, and even like you look at Glassy. Like Glassy had a lot of different crazy, cool stories about. I don't mean crazy, but he had cool stories about his playing days, and
Okay.
then in being like a proud Scottish guy, he has this intense passion, and I mean I thought that was a whole different perspective from going from Frank to then Glassy, and then you go into Gabby Heinze, and I mean him and the rest of his staff were really really good with me. The way they saw things and the way he saw the game, and there was a lot of when I watched a lot of the stuff, it was a lot about like the way you would imagine Bielsa would train. He never named the coaches, but he talked about the ones he had learned from, and then to talk about different locker rooms he had been in. And so I got to learn like a whole different type of passion that he had for the game, and a one that I hadn't seen in ever, but that was an interesting one, and also different training techniques and different ways of doing it on the field, and how maybe it's more unit based or how you connect it into individual movements or in pairs, and then working with Gonzo, these guys all had they all had playing experience that I had learned from different things they had talked about. Gonzo had really cool experience in Seattle, so that I got to learn from different things that they did that was really successful, things that he did in as a player in Mexico. So again, a different way of playing, a different way of coaching. He had a different way of organizing, and I'd say different in a good way. Help organize whether it's meetings or structures of training, and the way methodology and periodization was. Like he had a different way of thinking there. So I always try to take whatever good things that I thought also made sense to the way I see the game or the way I feel it. So without giving like overall specifics, like I took something from all of them, and sometimes melting them together. Ultimately, like there's a lot of things that everyone almost like steals from each other.
Yeah.
Not in a way of like, oh, I'm just going to replicate exactly what he did. But I played for Adrian Heath, and Adrian used to do these attacking patterns as a player, like, and I actually really liked them. Maybe a lot of people think they were boring, but we used to do 11v0, or it would be doubled up, and we would do 11v0, and he would make it fun and competitive, and we would do this side versus this side, how many assists. And I remember him being like really enthusiastic with it, and I liked it. And I remember trying it for the first time as a coach, and like the group just kind of looking at me like, "This is boring." I was like, "Oh man!" Like, but it worked. Like Adrian did it; it worked.
Yeah.
And I realized it worked for him, but the way I was doing it wasn't me. It wasn't working. So I still like to do something similar, but I've added my own little twist to it and my own thoughts on how that can run a little bit different with more energy and more authentic to me. So, and I was talking to him about this the other day, because I said, did you still do those? Like, how did it work? Did you adapt them? And anyways, we had a good conversation about it. And that's just something, again, like learning from different coaches that you've either played for or been around is important, because I think that we take different ideas and then we try to mold them to ourselves.
That kind of leads into my next question. It's a melting pot, right? All the coaches, all the playing time that you've had before, it all kind of molds into your own ideas and philosophy. But what would you consider or define as your coaching philosophy and how you want the team to play?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's evolving, but like I would say, like it's hardworking, passionate, forward thinking in all phases. So I always try to tell them, like, whether it's an attacking topic or as a defending topic, it's about thinking to go forward so we can eventually score a goal. Like you score goals, you win the game, and you don't concede, right? But and the defensive part of it is if you're hardworking, you're passionate, you're intense. Those things I want the teams that I'm working with. I want them to display those things, and it's on every side of the ball. I'm not one that would sit here and go like I'm a dominant possession guy, and I think a lot of people say it, but are you really, like, can you really do that? And what do your groups have? Like, I think that one thing that I have that I would say I have in my locker is that I'm adaptable. Like you, and I think you have to be as a coach. And I've worked in a second team environment for the start of my career, so it was about adapting on the fly. You start with 12 guys for training, then all of a sudden, first team takes 3, and you've got 9. So what are you doing, and how are you getting the most out of that group? So I try to always adapt to what we have and evaluate that and make sure that yes, it's true to the way. Yeah, I want to play this way, but guess what? I don't have X, Y, and Z to play that way. Then if you keep doing it, you're the stupid one. So I don't want to be that guy that's like, well, I only play this way and that's it. I play the way I want the teams to play and be a representation of me. That's great, but that's more about like the character and the work rate and things like that. So those parts are really big to me. The X's and O's, I can be adaptable. There's certain things I like, and I would say I would continue to be me in that way, but I will adapt to the teams and the environments that I continue to have.
It's kind of an inside joke. Over the past like 2 months, essentially since you took over, but I've said on our show the word pragmatic. I don't know how many times, man, it's a thing that you have to have. I feel this is my humble opinion. You have to be able to change and, like you said, adapt. And so yeah, I've used that word multiple times because it seems like the lineups and everything else, you come out and it seems like there's significant thought put into how are we going to do this to the team that's right in front of us right now, not how are we going to do this overall through the entire season and keep it exactly the same.
That's one of the biggest compliments I've had. So thank you. We have a running joke with the staff as well, because I mean we can give Doug credit for it because he's the one that asked the question, and maybe everyone's like, this guy's stupid, he doesn't know what that means. But when I sat there and talked with my wife about it, and I was like, man, like I felt like it had a negative connotation. She's like, that's exactly what you're wanting the team to be.
Yeah.
And I was like, you know what, you're right. And when I look up the definition, and then I started talking with the staff, and so now we have the same joke, is that if someone says that to me, I'm like, well, then we're doing it right, because ultimately the goal is to score goals, win the game, and how you do that is up to you. Like, look at the Columbus game. They had 70% possession, and it's not a disrespect to them by any means, but it's what you do with it. And ultimately it's about winning the game and how we can win the game. It's not that I want to be untrue to myself. The team was true to the way we wanted to play, and we were pragmatic in the game. We played what the game gave us, and I thought we did a good job of making sure that they dominated a lot of teams. So what they do with it, you look at where their shots came from, like it wasn't the areas that they normally come from. So that was where I was happy with, and that team can stay true to who we think we are.
It's funny because I remember I was in that press conference when you mentioned the pragmatic thing up on the table, and I was like, hey, I'm so glad to hear somebody else say that word, because I've been preaching it for the past month.
That's good.
So with all that being said, what are some of the biggest improvements that you would like to see out of the squad, kind of as it stands right now, if anything?
No, like we're always looking at what we can affect now, and that was true to each time. Like the time before we took over, it comes obviously in the middle of the season. It's not where you can sit there and go, we've got a ton of training time, let's hit 6 weeks of training and then we'll play the games. No, the games are coming, and we had over the last 2 months, we had just games and games. So a lot of it was looking at the game and then evaluating off the game and going, okay, we're still missing this, or evaluating because we were evaluating the squad and what we had, and we were trying to make adaptations before. But ultimately, now it's different voices. It's different. There's different people that are involved. So we're trying to and there's different players here. So now we're trying to make more progress with what we think exactly we can get at. So we look at, like, I mean, I think the first game when we really saw some improvements was like the defensive shape, even though giving up a goal 40 seconds in the game. The defensive shape was something that made improvement and potentially could have put us on a different side of that score sheet. So I've told this to all you guys before, is that take the outcome out of it, take the set pieces out. It was a game that I was actually, people are going to cane me for saying this, but like, I was proud of it. It was a game that I felt like we were really in it. It's difficult to win away, and we made some progression as a team. So that defensive shape and being solid and being able to create opportunities to attack and actually have goal scoring opportunities from defensive shape was something that I thought we could start to make progress with. And that's where every game I feel like there is some of that. And then from the other part of it, on the other side of the ball, is about being pragmatic, playing what the game gives us. If it's the space in behind, you go with the space in behind. If it's space in between and we can play, great. And I never want us to be a team that's predictable in a way of like, all right, they're always gonna build out, they're always gonna play from goal kick, they're always gonna have this certain pattern. There's certain ideas that I want the team to have, that yes, of course, but the predictable is not that. So every game out, there's certain areas that we try to attack, and I think that we're seeing that can be difficult sometimes, I think, with players too, because they're going, oh, tell me exactly how to beat them. Well, I tell you that, they're going to figure it out and they're going to stop us. So that is something where I started to see some progression in the team of being that pragmatic team of, okay, they got a high line, we're going to play behind. Like take Columbus, for example, like with the lineup that we put out, we were looking at something a little bit more direct, and we thought that this could be a different way to hurt them. And there was opportunity in that. So again, not letting the outcome dictate it, but also what we're going to do in the game plan to ultimately get the outcome we want.
And I know obviously the results are what matter, right? But like, I think there are things in games that you can look at and say, well, that went well, or that half went well and that other half didn't go well, or, you know, whatever. But when you go back and look and you kind of do review, which I know y'all haven't had a ton of time to do lately, but when you go back and review, what is the message, I guess, to the guys in terms of like, you know, do you isolate certain, you know, plays or certain halves, or, you know, just certain parts of the game and say, hey, this is kind of, do more of this and don't do more of this? Or kind of how do you go through your film sessions?
Yeah, there's every game is different. And like, to be honest, because we've just had games and games and games, we've done a lot of review because we've not had a ton of time on the field. So it's about, I'm not saying we do long film sessions, but we would do, whether it's a quick review of the game or we move on to the opponent, but at some point we always review some part of the game. And so, for example, Montreal. So Montreal, we reviewed the first half. And like, this has been a really cool learning curve for me as well, is that when I look at how I coach, or how we as a staff coach, is that during the pregame, what do we give them? During the first half, what information are we getting onto them, if it's good or bad? And then at halftime, how are we affecting it so that the second half is different or continue on, whatever the messaging might be. And then the review becomes, hey, remember we talked about this. This is what we tried to adjust. This one didn't work, or hey, this movement did work. This decision, I'll take this one, or whatever. We take the accountability from there. So the Montreal one, for example, the first half, we touched on being too deep defensively, getting higher up the pitch. So we started to make that adjustment. Then we give up a goal within 5 minutes and then a red card. So all of a sudden things change a little bit. But when I look back at the film in the second half, when we're down a man, we actually created, without the stat telling me that, there was actual opportunity that we could have gone in transition. So almost isolated that one to be like defense to attack transition review of like, hey, if we get in these scenarios, this is the game. This is what happened. We had chances. We didn't make the right pass or right decision. So we kind of went, say, game by game with there. Columbus was a little bit different of like, hey, this was your compact shape. This is where you created opportunities. We do look at, like, especially if it's a one-off about a goal conceded, there can be accountability and something like that. But also if it's, hey, this one, let's give an example, Bartek gives the ball away. Hey, don't do that again. Like, it's something that hopefully it never happens, you know?
Yeah.
Now we can talk about areas we build out in, but we always try to review if it's a consistent theme of, are we giving the same goals up? I think somebody asked us this, and it's like, if we're giving the same goals up, now we have a problem. So we looked at like the 3 set pieces from Salt Lake. We reviewed those, and then we moved on to something else in the game that would help us move forward. So we've always addressed issues first, and then go to what the game maybe gave us, and then from there, so that we don't just consistently like, hey, you did this and it's chop and change. It's the theme of the game, and then you move forward from there.
So, a couple of quick curveballs for you. You've been in Atlanta, obviously, for a while. What's your favorite place to eat?
Oof. I'm not gonna say like an Atlanta great one because
That's
I've
okay.
not been to a ton of places. I'm trying to think something.
Or type of food. It ain't got to be a specific restaurant.
Type of food. You know what? The Red Eye Mule up here in Marietta is like a breakfast place that's really good. It was on Diners, Drive-ins, and Dives, and they've
There you
got
go.
some good breakfast food. So that place is probably one of my favorite, and it's local here. So
And then again, just to kind of give people the opportunity to kind of get to know you more. What do you and your family, what do y'all kind of do for fun? You know, when you do have that little bit of free time that you have.
yeah, I mean, thanks for asking about them because the most important thing to me. We've been the kids. My kids are a little bit older, getting a little bit older now, and so we were able to do a little bit more outdoor stuff. Like the other day, we played pickleball. Me, my son, my daughter, and my wife, which was a test of my patience. While it was hot and steamy and
Yep.
all that, but we played a little bit of pickleball. We like to go on hikes a lot. Just recently, we went down to the Beltline, walked around down there. The kids, they love like anything outdoors. Really, my son loves playing sports. My daughter loves dancing and art and all that. And my wife's the orchestrator of all of it, so she's always getting us to do something. But we played putt golf. We were at Putt Shack. We did that. We were just trying to do something fun together, create different memories, and yeah, exploring different areas. We love doing that. But yeah, we're always trying something different during whether it's a day off or 2 days off if we ever get that.
So I got to give you a quick shout out. You were correct. It is putt, not mini golf. So
Yes.
got it right. Got it right. Rob, I really appreciate you coming on, hanging out with us for a little bit. I know you are a busy man. We'll get you out of here. But is there anything at all, last thing that you want to tell the fans? Anything in particular that you just say, hey, this is something that needs to be put out there?
No, I mean, nothing. I appreciate everyone. The support that I say I've had, like that we've had as a staff, like the club, like, and I mean that in the good and the bad times. That people that support the club, I understand that when things aren't great, you're unhappy, and you should be. Like I grew up with my dad being we're from Chicago originally, and he was a Bears, Bulls, Cubs fan, and I remember growing up him screaming at the TV about the Bears being bad for a lot of years. And so when I watched that, I'm getting there in a long way, but when I watched him do that, I went like, man, he's really cares about this. And so even when I hear the negative, I try to remember my dad in some ways of how passionate he was and how much that team or that sport might have meant to him. And so I have an appreciation for that. Not doesn't mean I want them screaming bad things at me like my
Right.
dad might have been screaming at the TV, but I can really appreciate their support and that they're always there. They make a massive difference. Every player in this league, I would imagine, wants to come and play here in Atlanta. I enjoy coaching in front of them. I hope we make them proud every single time we can step on the field. And yeah, I'm grateful for their support and how they've treated myself and the staff and the rest and my family as well. It's been really, really, really amazing.
Rob Valentino, really appreciate it, buddy. Thanks for coming on, man. This has been awesome.
Thanks again. Appreciate it.